Every night he would enter her room after midnight. The truth turned Christmas into a nightmare. And if you have ever felt like something terrible is happening under your own roof, but everyone is making you believe you are crazy, today I am going to tell you something I never thought I would share. And if you, for just a second, feel that this seems familiar, I just ask you to leave a like and subscribe. It is going to help me continue venting. My name is Carol Dawson. I am 63 years old, and I have lived in Atlanta, Georgia since I was born. I thought I knew my family. I thought that after 35 years of marriage to Robert, I could trust him. I thought that our daughter Hope was the jewel of our lives, and that our son-in-law Charles was a good man. I was wrong about everything. It was December of last year. The air smelled like gingerbread and apple cider when I started noticing strange things. Robert, my husband, had inexplicably changed his nighttime habits. For decades, we slept together in our master bedroom in this house, in the quiet suburb that we bought when we were young, investing every dollar we earned working at the Peachtree Farmers Market. But since November, Robert had started getting up every night around 12:30. At first, I thought it was prostate issues. At his age, 67 years old, it was normal. But when I asked him in the morning, he denied even getting up. "You're imagining things, Carol. I slept like a baby all night," he would tell me as he spread butter on his toast, without even looking me in the eye. One night in the middle of December, I decided to pretend I was sleeping. I closed my eyes and waited. Punctually at 12:37 a.m., I felt Robert get up, being careful not to make a sound. His bare feet crossed our cold tile floor. He opened the door with the delicacy of someone who does not want to be discovered and stepped out into the hallway. My heart started pounding so hard I thought it would give me away. I got up silently and walked to the slightly ajar door. From there I could see the hallway connecting the 3 bedrooms in our house, ours, Hope, and Charles's, and the small one where my 11-year-old granddaughter Sophia slept. Robert headed straight for our daughter's room. He softly tapped the door. She opened it. He went in and closed it behind him. A cold sweat covered my entire body. What was my husband doing in our daughter's room at that hour? Charles, her husband, worked as a night security guard for a company and did not get home until 6 in the morning. Hope was alone in there. I returned to bed, trembling, but I could not sleep. Every noise in the house startled me. Was it normal for a father-in-law to visit his daughter in the middle of the night when her husband was gone? Was it normal for my husband to lie to me about those nighttime meetings? The next morning, during breakfast, I tried to approach the subject subtly. "Robert, I heard you get up last night. Everything okay?" He was quietly chewing his scrambled eggs while reading the news on his phone. "I did not get up, Carol. I already told you I did not. But I saw you leave the room. You are losing it, old lady. Maybe you have Alzheimer's already." Hope, who was packing Sophia's lunch for school, turned towards me with an expression I could not interpret. It was not surprise. It was not worry. It was annoyance. "Mum, you are starting with your weird stuff again. Dad did not get up last night. I was up late watching TV and I did not hear anything." Sophia, my granddaughter, was nibbling her cinnamon roll without participating in the conversation, but I saw her look at all of us with a strange expression in her eyes, as if she knew something she could not say. "Sophia, my love, did you hear anything last night?" I asked her directly. The girl opened her mouth to answer, but Hope sharply interrupted her. "Leave the kid alone, Mom. Do not drag her into your paranoia." Over the next few days, the pattern repeated religiously. Robert would get up between 12:30 and 1 o'clock a.m. He would walk to Hope's room and return approximately 1 hour later. I know because one night I stayed awake timing his movements with the clock on the nightstand that had belonged to my mother. I decided to confront Hope directly. It was December 22nd. We were in the kitchen preparing the turkey and mashed potatoes for the Christmas dinner, a tradition we had kept since she got married. The aroma of roasting herbs and spices filled the whole house, mixing with the smell of the Christmas tree we had put up in the living room. "Honey, I need to ask you something, and I want you to tell me the truth." Hope kept spreading butter on the mashed potatoes without looking at me. "Tell me, Mum, why does your father go to your room every night when Charles is not here?" Her hands stopped. Slowly, she raised her face to me. In her eyes, I saw something that chilled my blood. It was not surprise. It was fear. And then, very quickly, that fear transformed into rage. "What are you talking about, Mum? Dad does not come to my room." "Hope, I have seen him. Every night. He leaves our room, goes toward yours, enters, and leaves about an hour later." "You are crazy, Mum." "Completely crazy." But her voice was trembling. And for the first time in weeks, I realized that my daughter, my girl whom I had raised with so much love, had deep, dark circles under her eyes and had lost weight. Her face, which had always been rounded and smiling, looked gaunt and tense. "Hope, what is happening in this house? Tell me the truth." She threw the spoon onto the table with such force that mashed potatoes splattered everywhere. "Enough, Mum. You are making things up. Dad does not come to my room, and even if he did, it is not your problem." "How is it not my problem? I am his wife. I am your mother. And I am an adult woman. I am 32 years old. I do not need you to look after me." That night, December 22nd, I stayed awake again. Robert got up at 12:45 a.m., but this time, instead of staying in bed, I decided to follow him. Barefoot, I walked down the hallway until I was close to Hope's door. I heard voices. First Robert's, in a tone I had never heard in 35 years of marriage. It was soft, persuasive, almost seductive. "You know this is what you need, Hope. Do not pretend you do not like it." Then I heard my daughter's voice, broken, pleading. "Please, Daddy, no more. Charles is going to get suspicious if I keep being this nervous." "Charles does not suspect anything. He is an idiot. And besides, you know what is going to happen if you tell anyone." My world collapsed at that moment. My legs trembled so much that I had to lean against the wall to keep from falling. My husband, the man with whom I had built a life, a family, a home, was abusing our daughter. And she knew it. 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 She knew. She knew it. 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 She knew it about why Mum seemed so tired lately. On December 23rd, while Hope had gone downtown to buy the last Christmas gifts, I decided to speak to Robert directly. We were alone in the living room, him watching football on television and me pretending to knit a scarf for Sophia. The Christmas tree blinked with coloured lights that now seemed obscene to me, as if the holiday cheer was a cruel mockery of what I was discovering. Robert, we need to talk. He kept looking at the screen, drinking beer directly from the bottle. About what, Carol? About what happens at night. About what you do when you get up. This time he did turn towards me. His expression showed neither surprise nor guilt. It was a cold, calculating look, as if he was evaluating how much I knew and how to handle the situation. I do not know what you are talking about. I know you go to Hope's room every night. I know she does not want you to. And I know you threaten her so she will not say anything. Robert set the beer down on the coffee table with a dry thud. He got up from the armchair and walked towards where I was sitting. His proximity intimidated me in a way I had never experienced in more than 3 decades of marriage. Carol, listen to me very carefully. You have no idea what you are saying. And I suggest you stop making up nonsense before this becomes a problem for everyone in this house. Oh, a problem for who, Robert? For you? For Sophia. The 2 words fell like a death sentence. My granddaughter. My adored Sophia, 11 years old, with her always perfect braids and her laugh that filled the whole house when she came home from school. I understood the threat immediately. You would not dare. Hope understands very well that some things are better kept in the family, that there are certain traditions that pass from generation to generation, and that if someone wants to change those traditions, the consequences can be very painful for the most innocent people. I was paralyzed. Robert was not only abusing our daughter, but he was threatening her with hurting Sophia if she spoke. And now he was making the same threat to me. You are a monster, I whispered. I am the man who has supported this family for 35 years. I am the one who pays the electricity, the water, the food you eat. I am the one who has the contacts at the bank where we keep our savings, the one who knows the police in the sector, the one who decides what happens and what does not happen in this house. He moved closer, so close that I could smell the alcohol on his breath, mixed with the aroma of his cheap cologne. And you are an old woman who has nowhere to go if I decide you no longer live here, a woman who never worked, who has no property in her name, who depends completely on me to survive. So I suggest you continue to be the quiet and obedient wife you have always been. When Hope returned that afternoon with the bags of gifts, her eyes were swollen as if she had been crying. She headed straight to her room without greeting anyone. Sophia, who was doing homework at the dining room table, looked up worriedly. Grandma Carol, why is Mum always sad at Christmas? My granddaughter's question broke my heart. How to explain to an 11-year-old girl that her family world was a lie? How to protect her from a truth that could destroy her innocence forever? Sometimes adults have worries that children do not understand, my love. But Mom cries a lot, and Grandpa Robert is always in a bad mood, and you look very sad lately too. Sophia was more perceptive than any of us had imagined. She had noticed that something was wrong in the family, although she could not identify exactly what. You know what, Sophia? Come here. I took her hand and led her to my room. I closed the door and we sat on my bed, the same one where I had slept with Robert for decades, where we had conceived hope, where we had planned our future when we were young and believed in love. My love, I want to ask you something very important, and I need you to tell me the truth. The girl nodded with those big, trusting eyes that only children who still believe that adults will always protect them have. Has Grandpa Robert ever done anything that makes you feel uncomfortable? Has he touched you in any way you do not like? Has he told you not to tell anyone about something you did together? Sophia frowned, thinking carefully before answering. No, Grandma. Grandpa almost never talks to me. But what, my love? Sometimes I hear noises at night, like someone is crying, and once I saw Grandpa come out of Mum's room very late. What else have you seen, Sophia? Mum has bruises on her arms. She hides them with long sleeves, but I saw them when she was taking a shower. And once I heard her talking on the phone with someone, telling them she could not take it anymore, that she wanted to die. My world completely collapsed. Hope was not only being sexually abused by her father, but she was also being beaten. And my granddaughter, my little Sophia, had been a silent witness to all this horror. Sophia, my love, everything you are telling me is very important, but I need you not to tell anyone that we talked about this for now. Is that okay? Not even Mum. Especially not Mum. At least not yet. Grandma is going to fix all this, but I need time to think about how to do it the right way. That night was Christmas Eve. Traditionally, the whole family gathered to have turkey, hot cider, and cranberry sauce. Hope had invited Charles to have dinner with us before he went to work, and my sister Lucy and her husband Joe were also coming. But when the guests arrived, the tension in the house was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Robert acted like the perfect patriarch, pouring shots of bourbon and telling jokes, but I could see how Hope flinched every time he came near her. Charles, poor man, seemed completely oblivious to what was happening in his own home. During dinner, while everyone talked about plans for the new year and commented on how delicious the food was, I could not stop observing my family as if I were seeing them for the first time. My sister Lucy praising Robert for being such a good father and grandfather. Charles thanking his father-in-law for taking such good care of Hope while he worked nights. Sophia eating in silence, with that premature maturity that children who have seen too much develop. When Charles left for work around 10 o'clock at night, and Lucy and Joe said goodbye shortly after, the house was once again in that oppressive atmosphere that had become normal. Robert poured himself another glass of bourbon and sat in his favourite armchair to watch television. "Hope, come here," he shouted from the living room. My daughter, who was clearing the dinner dishes, froze for a moment. Then she walked towards her father with slow steps, like a condemned woman walking to the gallows. "Sit here with me. It is Christmas Eve." Hope sat on the couch next to his, keeping the greatest possible distance. Robert put his hand on my daughter's leg and left it there, possessive, threatening. "We are a very close family, right, Hope?" "Yes, Daddy." "And close families take care of each other, right? They keep the secrets that need to be kept." "Yes, Daddy." "Good, because tonight is going to be very special. very special for the two of us. At that moment, I knew I could not continue to be a silent spectator. I could not allow Robert to continue destroying my daughter one more night. But I also knew that confronting him directly could endanger Sophia. I had to make a decision, and I had to make it that very night. At 11 o'clock at night, when Sophia had already gone to sleep and the house was silent, I decided I could not stand by and do nothing. Robert had turned up the volume on the television to cover up any noise that might come from Hope's room. It was his way of telling me that he knew that I knew, but that I did not care enough to do anything about it. I got up from the sofa, where I had been pretending to watch the Christmas movies, and walked to the kitchen. I needed to think clearly, and I had always found peace in that space where I had cooked for my family for so many years. I put water on to boil to make myself some chamomile tea, but my hands were trembling so much that I almost dropped the teapot. While waiting for the water to boil, I opened one of the drawers where I kept the important house documents. All the papers that Robert controlled were there. The deed to the house, the bank statements, the insurance policies. Everything was in his name. Everything. Even the house we had bought with the money I had inherited from my parents when they died. In 1987, when we bought this property in the quiet suburb, I had the capital from the sale of my parents' house, but Robert convinced me to put everything in his name for tax reasons, because he understood those issues better, and because it would be easier to get loans in the future. I trusted him completely. Why would I not? He was my husband, the father of my daughter, the man who was supposed to love and protect me until death. Now I realized that this decision had turned me into a prisoner, with no property in my name, without independent bank accounts, without a job that would give me economic autonomy. I was completely at the mercy of a man who turned out to be a predator. I checked more papers. Robert had made several investments in recent years without consulting me. He had bought shares in mining companies. He had invested money in a friend's business that turned out to be a pyramid scheme. He had even lost a considerable amount speculating with cryptocurrency the previous year. Our savings, which should have been enough for a decent retirement, had been significantly reduced by his impulsive decisions. But the most disturbing thing was a series of cash withdrawals he had been making monthly for the past 2 years. Large amounts, always on Friday afternoons, always from the same bank branch. What was Robert spending so much cash on? Why did he need those transactions to be untraceable? The water boiled, but I no longer wanted tea. I felt like vomiting. My husband was not only an abuser, but also a poor manager who was squandering our assets on activities he preferred to keep secret. I heard footsteps in the hallway. It was Robert, heading towards Hope's room. I looked at the stove clock. 12:43 a.m., punctual as always for his appointment with horror. This time I decided to be more daring. Instead of staying in the kitchen pretending I did not know what was happening, I walked into the hallway. I stood there, not hiding, waiting for Robert to see me when he left my daughter's room. An hour and 15 minutes later, the door opened. Robert appeared in the doorway, adjusting his pajama pants. When he saw me standing there, looking directly at him, he showed neither surprise nor shame, only annoyance. "What are you doing standing there like a ghost, Carol?" "Waiting for you." "For what?" "To tell you that it is over. Tonight, all of this ends." Robert walked towards me with that smile that now gave me chills, the same one he used when he thought he had everything under control. "Oh yeah? And what are you going to do, Carol? Who are you going to tell? The police? Your sister Lucy? Pastor Dave from the parish?" He stopped right in front of me, invading my personal space in an intimidating way. "Go ahead. Tell them. Tell them that the respectable Robert Dawson, who has been an honest merchant at the Peachtree Farmers Market for 40 years, who has been a Sunday school teacher at church, who has never gotten into trouble with anyone, is abusing his own daughter. Let us see who believes you." His words hit me like slaps because I knew he was right. Robert had built an impeccable reputation in the community. He was loved by the neighbors, respected by the market merchants, appreciated by the pastor. Who would believe the accusations of a housewife without concrete proof against such a respectable man? "Besides," he continued, "do you really want all of Atlanta to know that these things happen in your family? Do you want Sophia to grow up with the stigma of coming from a family of degenerates? Do you want Charles to leave hope when he finds out what has been happening? Because believe me, Carol, men do not usually stay with women who have been, shall we say, contaminated. Hope is not to blame for anything." "Oh no? Are you sure about that?" Robert's tone changed, becoming crueler, more sadistic. "Are you sure your daughter does not enjoy our nighttime meetings? Are you sure she is not the one who seeks me out, who seduces me, who begs me to come to her room? You are sick." "I am telling the truth. Hope is an adult woman, Carol. A woman who has been married for years to a man who works at night and does not give her the attention she needs. A woman who found the affection and passion she cannot find in her husband, in her father." Robert's words were like pure poison. He was trying to convince me that my daughter was a willing accomplice to her own abuse, that I was the only one who saw evil where there was only family love. Tomorrow is Christmas, Carol, a day of peace, of family, of forgiveness. I suggest you reflect very carefully on whether you want to ruin this beautiful celebration with your sick fantasies. Robert headed towards our room, but before entering, he turned back to me one last time. "And think about Sophia, too. Think about what can happen to such a pretty, innocent girl if her grandmother decides to create unnecessary problems in this family." The threat could not be clearer. If I spoke, Sophia would be his next victim. That night I could not sleep for a minute. I stayed sitting in the living room, looking at the Christmas tree that now seemed grotesque to me, thinking about all the previous Christmases we had celebrated in this same house. When had the abuse started? Had there been signs that I had ignored? Had I been blind to my daughter's silent pleas for years? I remembered conversations I had had with Hope in recent months. Her comments about how difficult marriage was, about how sometimes she felt she could not take it anymore, about how she envied the divorced women she knew. I had interpreted those comments as the normal complaints of a wife going through a rough patch with her husband. It never occurred to me that she was asking for help in the only way she dared. I also remembered changes in her behavior that I had attributed to other causes. Her refusal to wear tight or low-cut clothing, when she used to be very flirty. Her habit of showering with the bathroom door locked, when she used to be very relaxed about privacy. The way she tensed up when Robert hugged her at family gatherings. Something I had interpreted as shyness or bad mood. All the signs had been there. I just had not wanted to see them because recognizing them would have meant admitting that the man with whom I had built my life was a monster. When December 25th, Christmas Day, dawned, I made a decision. I could not confront Robert directly because he had all the advantages: the money, the property, the reputation, the power. But I could start documenting what was happening. I could seek professional help. I could find a way to protect Hope and Sophia without putting them in greater danger. Hope appeared in the kitchen around 8 o'clock in the morning to prepare Christmas breakfast. She had new bruises on her neck that she was trying to cover with makeup and a light scarf. Her eyes were swollen and red. "Good morning, Mum," she said in a hoarse voice. "Good morning, honey." We stayed silent for a few minutes, her making coffee and me pretending to read the Christmas newspaper. Finally, without looking up from the coffee maker, Hope whispered, "Mum, I need to tell you something." My heart raced. Finally, my daughter was going to confess what was happening. Was she going to ask me for help? Tell me, honey. I am pregnant. The world stopped completely. Hope was pregnant. Charles had been working night shifts for 3 months without a single day off. Robert had been abusing her every night during that same period. How far along? I managed to ask in a trembling voice. 2.5 months, my daughter replied, and started crying inconsolably. At that moment, I knew that this was not just a case of sexual abuse. It was much worse than that. Hope continued crying over the kitchen table while I tried to process the magnitude of what she had just confessed to me. My daughter was pregnant by her own father. The baby growing in her womb was the product of the systematic abuse that Robert had been committing for months. And Charles, poor Charles who worked double shifts to support his family, had no idea of the nightmare his wife was living. Hope, look at me, I said, taking her hands. You need to tell me exactly when all this started. My daughter raised her face, and in her eyes I saw a mixture of shame, terror, and pleading that broke my heart. It started when Charles got the night guard job, about 4 months ago. At first, Dad only came to ask me if I needed anything, if I was afraid of being alone. He said it was his responsibility, as the man of the house, to take care of the women when Charles was not there. And then? Then he started staying longer. He would bring me a glass of water, sit on the edge of my bed to talk. He would tell me that Charles did not value me, that a man who works at night cannot satisfy his wife as he should. Hope wiped her tears with the back of her hand, but they kept falling non-stop. One night he told me I looked very tense, that I needed a massage to relax. I told him no, but he insisted. He said it was normal between family, that he gave Mum massages all the time. That is a lie, Hope. Your father has never given me a massage in 35 years. I know now, but at that moment, I do not know, Mum. I felt so lonely, so abandoned by Charles, so tired of everything. And Dad was very convincing. He said he loved me more than anyone in the world, that only he understood my needs. When was the first time that? 2.5 months ago, right after Charles started working so many weekends to earn extra money for the Christmas holidays. The chronology fit perfectly. Charles working extra shifts, Robert taking advantage of that absence to abuse Hope, and now a pregnancy that could not be from any other man than my husband. Hope, have you told Charles you are pregnant? No. How am I going to tell him? He's going to want to know exact dates. He is going to do the math. He is going to realize that this cannot be his. And what does your father plan to do about it? Hope's expression changed, becoming even more terrified. He says we have to tell Charles the baby is his. He says it is easy to convince men of these things, that they are going to be so excited to be a dad that they will not ask questions. And if Charles were to suspect something? What? Dad says he has contacts in the police who can invent domestic violence charges against Charles. He says he can have him put in jail, and I will be left without a husband and without a way to support Sophia. Robert had thought of everything. He had a plan for every contingency, a threat for every person who could interfere with his absolute control over the family. He was more cunning and more dangerous than I had imagined. What else did he tell you? That if I ever try to leave him or tell what is happening, he is going to make sure Sophia has an accident. He did not tell me what kind of accident, but when he says it, his eyes look different, like he is really capable of hurting her. At that moment, we heard footsteps coming down the stairs. Robert was heading to the kitchen for his Christmas breakfast, acting as if it were a normal day in a normal family. Hope quickly wiped her tears and started beating eggs to make a special breakfast. "Good morning, my beautiful family, Vertu," Robert said, with that cheerful, fake voice he had perfected for special occasions. "Merry Christmas." He approached Hope and gave her a kiss on the cheek that lasted too long, while putting his hand on my daughter's waist in a way that now made me nauseous. "How did you wake up, my girl? Did you sleep well after our talk last night?" Hope visibly tensed, but kept beating the eggs without answering. "Carol, why do you not set the table? Today is a special day, and I want everything to be perfect." Robert poured himself coffee and sat in his usual chair, from where he could observe all our movements. He started reading the news on his phone, commenting cheerfully on the football results and the government's plans for the coming year, as if there was not a single worry in the world. When Sophia came down for breakfast dressed in her new Christmas pajamas, Robert completely changed his attitude. He became the loving, protective grandfather that all the neighbors knew. "There is my princess. Did you see the gifts Santa brought you?" Sophia smiled, but even her smile looked forced. My granddaughter had developed that ability that children who live in dysfunctional homes have to read tense atmospheres and act accordingly. "Yes, Grandpa. Thank you very much." "Oh, are you not going to give me a hug?" Sophia approached hesitantly and gave him a quick hug. Robert held her longer than necessary, stroking her hair in a way that made me feel sick. "You are a very special girl, Sophia. Very, very special." During breakfast, Robert monopolized the conversation, talking about plans for the day. We would have visitors in the afternoon. My sister Lucy with her family, some neighbors, Ernie and his wife. Everyone would come to wish us happy holidays and enjoy the Christmas dinner that Hope had been preparing for days. "It is going to be a perfect Christmas," Robert said, while spreading jam on his toast. "A celebration that we will remember forever." The irony of his words was unbearable. This was, indeed, going to be a Christmas we would remember forever, but not for the reasons he suggested. After breakfast, when Robert went out to the yard to check the Christmas lights he had installed to impress the neighbors, Hope approached me in despair. "Mum, I cannot keep going like this. I cannot keep pretending everything is fine. Last night he told me that after the baby is born, he is going to start training Sophia too. He says it is important for the women in the family to learn their role from a young age. Training? To be a good wife, he says. To learn how to please men the right way." My blood ran cold. Robert was planning to abuse Sophia too. My 11-year-old granddaughter was in the sights of this predator, and I was the only one who could protect her. "Hope, listen to me very carefully. We are going to get out of this situation, but I need you to trust me completely." "How, Mum? He controls everything. The money, the house. He has friends in the police. He knows half of Atlanta. Who is going to believe us? Who is going to help us?" "I do not know yet, but I'm going to find a way. What I do know is that I am not going to let him lay a hand on Sophia." "Mum, if we try to do something and he finds out, he is going to kill us. Literally kill us. I would rather be dead than keep living in this nightmare." Hope looked at me with an expression I had not seen on her face since she was a child. Hope. For the first time in months, my daughter saw the possibility that someone would protect her, that someone would fight for her. "What do you need me to do?" she asked me. "For now, act normal. Survive this day. Smile for the visitors. Act like the perfect mother and wife you have always been. But in the meantime, I am going to be watching everything, documenting everything, looking for a way to get help. And if Robert suspects something, he is not going to suspect anything because he is going to be too busy performing for the visitors. Today is the perfect day for me to start moving without him noticing." At 12 o'clock noon, the first visitors began to arrive, the house filled with cheerful voices, laughter, Christmas greetings. The neighbors praised the decorations. The women helped Hope in the kitchen. The men talked to Robert about politics and sports. Everything seemed like a perfect Christmas postcard, but I could no longer participate in that farce. Every smile Robert gave the guests seemed like a devilish mask. Every compliment he received for being such a good father and grandfather sounded like a cruel mockery of fate to me. During the meal, while everyone toasted to family and happiness, Robert raised his glass and proposed a special toast. To my wife Carol, who has been the pillar of this family for so many years, to my daughter Hope, who is going to give us the joy of a new baby next year, and to my granddaughter Sophia, who is growing up to be a beautiful and special woman. Everyone applauded and toasted. No one noticed that I did not raise my glass. No one realized that Hope turned pale when Robert mentioned her pregnancy. No one saw how Sophia flinched when her grandfather talked about her. At that moment, I made a final decision. I was not going to allow Robert to continue destroying my family for one more day. That very night, when the visitors left and the house returned to its normal state, I was going to act. I did not know exactly how, but I knew I had to do it. At 10 o'clock at night, when the last visitor said goodbye, and the house was plunged into that false stillness that had become so familiar, I knew the time to act had come. Robert was in the living room finishing a beer while watching the late news, satisfied with the success of his Christmas performance. Hope had gone upstairs to put Sophia to bed, and I stayed in the kitchen doing the dishes, but I was actually organizing my plan. During the hours the visits lasted, I had been observing and memorizing everything. The way Robert touched Hope, when he thought no one was watching, running his hand down her lower back possessively. How he had hugged Sophia for too long when she said goodbye to go to sleep, whispering something in her ear that made her visibly uncomfortable. The way he had handled conversations, directing attention to himself, creating that image of a respectable patriarch that he used as a shield for his crimes. But I had also noticed something else. Robert had drunk more than usual. During the meal, he had several glasses of bourbon, then beers, and finally he had served himself brandy with the male guests. He was relaxed, confident, less alert than usual. If I was going to do something, this was my opportunity. Hope came down after putting Sophia to bed, her eyes swollen from crying so much during the day. She approached me in the kitchen and began to dry the dishes in silence. "How is Sophia?" I asked softly, nervously. She asked me why all the adults seemed to be acting today. She says she feels like she is living in a play, where she is the only one who does not know her part. She is a very smart girl. Too smart. I am afraid Robert will notice how much she observes and understands. We finished washing the dishes in silence, each lost in our own thoughts. When we were putting away the last plates, Hope grabbed my arm. "Mum, last night he told me something that has me terrified." "What?" "That after the baby is born, he is going to start taking Sophia on special outings too. He says it is important for her to start getting to know the real world, to not be a naive girl all her life." "Outings where?" He did not want to tell me, but the way he said it, the smile he put on. "Mum, I think he already has planned where and how he is going to start abusing her." At that moment, we heard Robert's voice from the living room. "Hope, come here." My daughter froze. It was the same voice he used every night when he called her for their private meetings, but this time it was earlier, more impatient. "Hope." "Mom, I cannot," my daughter whispered. "I cannot go in there again, not after knowing I am pregnant by him. I cannot keep pretending this is okay." "Go. Act normal. I am going to do something." "What are you going to do?" "Trust me." Hope walked towards the living room with slow steps, like a condemned woman. I stayed in the kitchen, but I strained my ears to hear what was happening. "Sit here with me," I heard Robert tell her. "I want to talk to you about our plans for next year." "What plans?" "For the baby, of course. We are going to have to be very careful with the timing, with the dates, with what we tell Charles. But do not worry. I will take care of everything." "Robert, I do not want—" "You do not want what? You do not want your own son. You do not want the blessing that God is giving us." The way Robert talked about the pregnancy, as if it were a divine gift instead of the result of his crimes, turned my stomach. But it also gave me the clarity I needed. This man was completely disconnected from reality. In his twisted mind, he had managed to convince himself that what he was doing was right, even virtuous. "Besides," he continued, "we have to talk about Sophia. She is already old enough to start learning certain things about life. And who better than her grandfather to teach them to her?" "No," Hope said, with a firmness she had not shown in months. "You do not touch Sophia." "Excuse me? Are you giving me orders?" "I am telling you not to lay a hand on my daughter." The silence that followed was so tense that I could feel it from the kitchen. Then I heard the sound of a slap, followed by a muffled whimper from Hope. "You do not talk to me like that, brat. I decide what happens in this house and with whom. And if I decide that Sophia needs a certain type of education, that is exactly what she is going to get." "Robert, please." "No more pleases. You have already fulfilled your role, Hope. You gave me the son I needed. Now it is Sophia's turn to learn her family responsibilities." I could not listen anymore. I walked silently to the drawer where we kept the kitchen knives. I took the largest one, the one we used for cutting the meat at special dinners. I hid it in the folds of my apron and walked towards the living room. Robert had Hope sitting on his lap, with one hand on her chest and the other stroking her belly where the baby was growing. My daughter was crying silently, her face red from the slap she had just received. "Robert," I said in a calm voice. He turned towards me annoyed, without letting go of Hope. "What do you want, Carol? We are having a private conversation." "I want you to let go of my daughter." "Or what?" I pulled the knife from the folds of the apron and held it firmly in my right hand. "Or I am going to kill you." Robert laughed, but his laugh sounded nervous. He did not expect this reaction from me. "You? You are going to kill me? Carol, do not be ridiculous. You could not kill a cockroach." "You are right. Under normal circumstances, I could not. But these are not normal circumstances. This is a mother protecting her daughter and her granddaughter from a monster. Stop this nonsense and go to sleep. It is late, and tomorrow you have to clean up all the mess the visitors left." Robert continued stroking Hope, defying me with his contemptuous attitude. He believed I was too cowardly, too dependent, too weak to do something truly drastic. He was wrong. "Hope, stand up and go to your room. Lock the door." My daughter looked at me with terror and confusion, but she obeyed. She got up from Robert's lap and ran towards the stairs. "Hope, come back here immediately, Dad," Robert shouted, standing up. "No," I said, positioning myself between him and the stairs. "You are not going to touch her ever again." "Carol, you are making a very serious mistake. Put that knife down before you do something you will regret for the rest of your life." "Do you know what I regret, Robert? Being blind for so many years, trusting you, not protecting my daughter when you started abusing her." "I am not abusing anyone. Hope is an adult woman who makes her own decisions. Hope is your daughter, and she is pregnant by you. You cannot prove that." "I do not need to prove it. I know it is true. You know it is true. And Hope knows it is true. And I am not going to let you do the same thing to Sophia." Robert changed tactics. His expression softened, adopting the manipulative tone he had perfected for decades. "Carol, my love, you are very confused. It has been a very stressful few days, with the holidays, with the visitors. You are imagining things that do not exist." "I am not imagining anything." "Of course you are. Think about it. Do you really think I would be capable of harming my own daughter, my granddaughter? I am your husband, Carol, the man who has loved you for 35 years. The man who has lied to me for 35 years." Robert took one more step closer, and I raised the knife, pointing it directly at his chest. "Do not come any closer. Carol, think about what you are doing. If you hurt me, if you kill me, what is going to happen to you? To Hope? To Sophia? You are going to go to jail. You are going to destroy the whole family." "The family is already destroyed, Robert. You destroyed it." "I have supported this family for decades. I have worked day and night to give you a house, food, education. And this is how you repay me? Threatening me with a knife in my own living room?" "Your own living room? This house was bought with the money from my parents' inheritance. Money you convinced me to put in your name to have total control over our lives." Robert fell silent for a moment, calculating his next move. "All right," he finally said. "You are right. I have made mistakes. I have done things I should not have done. But we can fix this, Carol. We can go to family therapy. We can talk to Pastor Dave. We can find a way to solve our problems. The only way to solve this problem is for you to stay away from Hope and Sophia forever." "I cannot do that. They are my family." "Not anymore." At that moment, we heard footsteps on the stairs. It was Sophia, coming down in her pajamas with a scared look. "Grandma, what is happening? I heard yelling." Robert took advantage of the distraction to take a step towards me, but I kept the knife steady. "Sophia, go back to your room immediately," I told her without taking my eyes off Robert. "Grandma, why do you have a knife?" "Sophia, come here with me," Robert said in a honeyed voice. "Your grandmother is a little sick, but I am going to protect you." My granddaughter froze on the last step, watching the scene without fully understanding what was happening, but instinctively sensing that something was terribly wrong. "Sophia," I said with all the firmness I could muster, "trust me. Go up to your room and do not come out until I tell you." "Sophia, come here," Robert insisted. Now my granddaughter looked me in the eyes. Then she looked at Robert. Then she looked back at me. In her face, I saw the decision forming. "I'm going to call my dad," she said, and ran up the stairs. Robert lunged towards the stairs to follow her, but I blocked his way. The knife grazed his shirt, tearing the fabric. "Carol, enough games." "This is not a game, Robert. This is the end." Robert backed up when he saw the blood on his shirt, but his eyes filled with a rage I had never seen before. He was no longer the manipulative, calculating man of the last few days. He was a cornered beast that had been discovered, and now he was showing his true fangs. "Carol, you just made the biggest mistake of your life," he said in a guttural voice that made my skin crawl. "No, Robert, the biggest mistake of my life was marrying you." From upstairs, we heard Sophia's desperate voice on the phone. "Daddy, Daddy, come quick. Grandma has a knife and Grandpa is yelling and Mum is crying." Robert took advantage of my momentary distraction when I heard Sophia to lunge at me. He was stronger and faster than I had calculated. He grabbed the wrist, holding the knife, and began twisting it with brutal force. "Let go, you stupid old woman," he growled as we fought over the weapon. But 35 years of contained rage gave me a strength I did not even know I had. I managed to keep my grip on the knife while Robert tried to take it from me. We rolled on the living room floor, knocking over the coffee table, breaking the Christmas ornaments that had been decorating our family farce. "Mom!" Hope shouted from the top of the stairs. "Mom, look out!" Robert managed to get on top of me, using his weight to immobilize me. His face was inches from mine, and I could see in his eyes something that made me understand that this fight was not going to end until one of us was dead. 35 years I supported you, he spat at me as he kept trying to take the knife. 35 years I gave you a house, food, respect, and this is how you repay me. Like all women, you are ungrateful. 35 years I was your slave, I replied, feeling his fingers hurting my wrist. 35 years I believed your lies, but no more. At that moment, we heard the tires of a car braking abruptly outside the house. It was Charles, who had rushed over from his job when Sophia called him. Seconds later, we heard his footsteps running towards the front door. "Hope! Sophia! What is happening?" Robert was distracted for a moment when he heard Charles's voice, and I took the opportunity to push him with all my strength. I did not manage to completely throw him off, but I did manage to free my hand from the knife. Charles burst into the living room like a storm and froze when he saw the scene. His father-in-law and mother-in-law fighting on the floor, overturned furniture, broken ornaments, blood on Robert's shirt. "What the hell is going on here?" "Charles, help me," I yelled at him. "Robert is abusing Hope. He has been abusing her for months." Robert took advantage of my distraction to punch me in the face, leaving me stunned. He got up from the floor and walked towards Charles with his hands raised in surrender. "Charles, brother, do not listen to what Carol says. She is having a nervous breakdown. She attacked me with a knife for no reason." Charles looked at the knife that had fallen to the floor. Then he looked at me with my face swollen from the blow. Then he looked at Robert with his torn, blood-stained shirt. "Hope!" he shouted towards the stairs. "Hope, get down here immediately." My daughter appeared at the top of the stairs, with Sophia clinging to her hand. They came down slowly, both visibly trembling. "Hope, tell me what is happening, and I want the truth." My daughter looked at Robert. Then she looked at me. Then she looked at her husband. I saw the internal battle she was fighting in her eyes. Fear against hope. Resignation against the possibility of salvation. "Charles," Robert began in a trembling voice. "Do not say anything," he shouted. "Do not say another word." "Hope," Charles said with a firmness I had not heard from him before. "Look at me, only me, and tell me what has been happening in this house." Hope let go of Sophia's hand and began to walk down the stairs towards her husband. With every step she took down, her expression changed. The terrified victim she had been for months began to transform into a woman who finally saw a way out. "Charles, my father has been raping me for 4 months." The silence that followed that confession was absolute. Charles froze, processing words his brain did not want to accept. Robert completely paled, knowing that his world had just collapsed. Sophia, from the top of the stairs, began to cry without fully understanding what was happening, but instinctively feeling that something terrible had just been revealed. "What?" Charles whispered. "Since you started working nights, he comes to my room. He forces me to. He threatens to hurt Sophia if I do not let him. And now I am pregnant. By him." Charles turned towards Robert, with an expression I had never seen on his face. It was pure, concentrated, lethal fury. "Is it true?" Robert tried to maintain his facade of innocence for one more moment. Charles, you cannot believe these crazy things. The women in this family are hysterical. They are making up. He could not finish the sentence, because Charles lunged at him with the speed of lightning. The blow he delivered sent him against the wall with such force that several pictures fell to the floor. Robert tried to get up, but Charles grabbed him by the neck and lifted him off the ground. You laid hands on my wife. Charles, wait. You laid hands on my wife? I can explain. Charles slammed him against the wall again. Robert began to bleed from his nose, but Charles was not finished with him. And you got her pregnant? Charles, please, Robert, feeling his life draining away in Charles's hands, finally broke. She wanted it. She sought me out. She was lonely. She needed a real man. It was the worst thing he could have said. Charles released him only to hit him better. He gave him a series of punches to the face and stomach that would have killed a weaker man. Daddy! Hope screamed. Daddy, stop! You're going to kill him! But Charles was in a state of blind rage. 30 years of working as a security guard, of dealing with criminals and violent situations, had taught him how to use his fists efficiently. And now he was unloading all that experience on the man who had raped his wife. Charles, I yelled at him, stop! It is not worth you going to jail for this animal. Charles stopped, breathing like a wounded bull, with bleeding knuckles and Robert unconscious at his feet. Hope, he said without turning to look at her. Take Sophia and go pack your things. We are leaving this house tonight. Where are we going to go? Anywhere far away from this son of a gun. Hope ran up the stairs with Sophia. I stayed in the living room with Charles, looking at Robert, who was breathing with difficulty, but was still alive. Charles, there is something else you need to know. What? Robert was planning to start abusing Sophia too. Charles turned towards Robert with the intention of hitting him again, but I stopped him. No, Charles. He is already unconscious, and we need to think about what we are going to do now. I am going to call the police. Robert says he has contacts in the police. He says he can invent charges against you. Have you put in jail? Charles thought for a moment, evaluating our options. Then we are leaving tonight. We grab what we can carry and we are gone. Tomorrow, from another city, we will make the report. And me? Charles looked at me with an expression I could not interpret at first. Then I understood. He was evaluating whether I had been an accomplice or a victim. Carol, how long did you know what was happening? I realized 3 days ago, on December 22nd. Before that, I had no idea. And why did you not say anything until now? Because he threatened to hurt Sophia, and because I was afraid that no one would believe me. Charles nodded, understanding the impossible situation I had found myself in. You are coming with us. Robert cannot keep all the assets you helped build for so many years. Hope and Sophia came down with 2 suitcases full of clothes and important documents. My granddaughter's eyes were red from crying so much, but her face showed more relief than sadness. Grandma, are you coming with us? She asked me. Yes, my love. I am going with you. And Grandpa Robert? I looked towards where Robert was lying on the floor. He had started to regain consciousness and was looking at us with pure hatred. Grandpa Robert is no longer part of our family. Charles grabbed the suitcases and we headed towards the door. Before leaving, I turned one last time to the man who had been my husband for 35 years, Robert. When you wake up completely, I suggest you do not try to follow us, because the next time you find us, I am not going to stop Charles, and I am not going to leave the knife on the floor. We left the house, closing the door behind us. It was December 26th, 2:00 a.m. It was cold, but for the first time in months I felt like I could breathe freely. I did not know what awaited us. I did not know how we were going to rebuild our lives after so much damage, but I knew we had finally escaped hell, and that was enough to start. We drove for 3 hours without a fixed destination, just getting away from Atlanta, while Sophia slept in the back seat. And Hope cried silently. Charles drove with a tension that was reflected in his white knuckles, gripping the steering wheel, stopping only to get gas and buy coffee at a lonely service station on the highway towards Savannah, Georgia. "Where are we going?" I asked him when he finally stopped at a roadside motel that looked clean and discreet. "For now, here. Tomorrow we will see." We rented 2 adjoining rooms, Charles and Hope in one, Sophia and I in the other. For the first time in months, my granddaughter and I could talk without the threatening shadow of Robert lurking over every word. "Grandma, is Grandpa Robert mean?" Sophia was sitting on the motel bed, in her teddy bear pajamas that she had packed in her haste to leave home. Despite everything she had witnessed, she was still an 11-year-old girl trying to understand an adult world that had become incomprehensible. "Yes, my love. He is very mean." "Is that why you had the knife?" "Because I had to protect you. You and your mum." "Was he hurting Mum?" I sat on the bed next to her, trying to find the right words to explain a situation that even adults could not fully process. "Grandpa Robert was doing very bad things to your mum, things that a dad should never do to his daughter, and he was threatening us so we would not say anything." "Was he going to do bad things to me too?" The question broke my heart, because it confirmed that Sophia had understood more than any of us had imagined. "He was going to try, but he will not be able to anymore. Never again." "Why did we leave?" "Because we left, and because now he knows we are no longer willing to keep quiet." Sophia snuggled up against me, and for the first time in months, I felt like I could hug her without fear, without having to be alert in case Robert appeared to interrupt our moment of affection. "Grandma, are we not going to live in our house anymore?" "No, my love. We are going to get a new house. A house where only we live, where no one hurts us." "And is Grandpa Robert going to be alone?" "Yes." "Good," she said, with a firmness that surprised me. "I do not want to see him ever again." The next day, Charles went out early to make phone calls from a public phone booth. When he returned, he brought news that completely changed our future. "My brother Jason lives in Key West," he told us while we were having breakfast at a family restaurant near the motel. "He has a tourism business, kayak rentals and beach tours. He offered me a job immediately when I told him the situation." "Does he know the whole story?" Hope asked. "I told him the essentials, that Robert was abusing you, that we had to flee Atlanta, that we need to start over." "And what did he say?" "That in Key West, there are many families who came fleeing difficult situations, that no one asks indiscreet questions, and that he has a small house where we can stay while we find something permanent." Key West. I had only been there once, on our honeymoon with Robert, 35 years ago. I remembered the golden beaches, the salty air, the feeling of freedom that being close to the ocean gave. Now the idea of living there seemed like an opportunity to be reborn. "And the pregnancy?" Hope asked. What am I going to do about the pregnancy? It was the question we had all been avoiding. My daughter was 2.5 months pregnant by her own father. The baby growing in her womb was the product of rape and incest. But it was also an innocent life that was not to blame for the circumstances of its conception. "Hope," I said, taking her hand. "That is a decision only you can make. Charles and I will support you in whatever you decide." Charles nodded, although I saw the internal struggle he was fighting in his eyes. He was a good man who had married a woman he loved, and now he had to deal with the fact that she was pregnant by her own father. I need time to think about it, Hope said. But first, I need to be in a safe place, where I can think clearly. Key West will be that place, Charles assured her. That afternoon, while Sophia was taking a nap and Charles was making more calls to organize our move, Hope and I had the most honest conversation of our lives. Mum, how did you not realize it before? How could you live in the same house and not see what was happening? The question I had been dreading since we left Atlanta. The question I had asked myself hundreds of times during the last 72 hours. I do not know, honey. I think I did not want to see it. I think it was easier to pretend that everything was fine than to face the possibility that the man with whom I had built my life was a monster. But there were signs, there must have been. There were. The way you tensed up when he touched you, your refusal to wear certain clothes, your comments about how difficult marriage was, but I interpreted all of that as normal problems, not as cries for help. Hope cried, and I cried with her. We cried for the months of suffering we could have avoided if I had been more observant, braver, more willing to face uncomfortable truths. But the important thing, I continued, is that I finally discovered it, and that we acted, and that now we are free. Are we really free, Mum? Or is Robert going to find a way to keep controlling our lives from afar? It was a valid concern. Robert knew our full names, our ID numbers. He had access to our bank accounts. If he wanted to find us, he probably could. That is why we are going to change everything. Charles already spoke with a lawyer in Key West who specializes in domestic violence cases. We are going to file formal reports. We are going to get restraining orders. We are going to open new bank accounts. We are going to create a new legal identity that protects us. And the money? The house? Everything we left in Atlanta? Honey, material things can be replaced. You cannot. Sophia cannot. Our safety and our peace of mind are priceless. Hope was silent for a moment, processing everything we had lost and everything we had gained. Mum, there is something else I need to tell you. Tell me. The night before we left, Robert told me he had already started preparing Sophia, that he had been accidentally touching her during the last few weeks to get her used to his contact. I felt the world collapse again. Had Robert already started abusing Sophia? Had my granddaughter been suffering in silence just like her mother? Have you asked her? I do not dare. I am afraid of the answer. Hope. We have to know. If Robert already touched her, Sophia needs psychological help immediately. That night, after having dinner at the same family restaurant as in the morning, I decided to talk to Sophia directly. I took her for a walk in the motel parking lot, where no one could hear our conversation. Sophia, I need to ask you something very important, and I need you to tell me the complete truth. Okay, Grandma. Did Grandpa Robert ever touch you in a way that made you feel uncomfortable? Did he touch you on parts of your body that he should not touch? Sophia stopped dead in her tracks and looked at me with those big eyes that reflected a premature wisdom. Yes, she whispered. When? Where? When you and Mum were not around. He told me he was going to teach me important things about being a woman. He touched me here, she said, pointing to her chest, and here, pointing between her legs. He told me it was normal, that all grandpas did that with their granddaughters. Anything else? He made me touch his thing. He told me it was a special secret between us, that if I told anyone, he would hurt you and Mum. My 11-year-old granddaughter had been sexually abused by Robert, and I had not realized it. I had failed as a mother and as a grandmother in the most fundamental way possible. Sophia, my love, nothing Grandpa Robert did to you was normal. None of that should have happened, and it was not your fault. No, never. It was never your fault. Adults are responsible for protecting children, not for hurting them. Is that why Dad hit him? One of the reasons, yes. I am glad. Sophia, is there anything else you need to tell me? Anything else Robert did to you? No, but he told me that when I turned 12, he was going to teach me more important things. I was very afraid of turning a year older. That night, I could not sleep. My family had been living in a house of horror for months, and I had been too blind to see it. Robert had not only abused Hope, but had already started abusing Sophia. If we had not escaped when we did, what would have happened when my granddaughter turned 12? But I also felt something I had not experienced in a long time. Hope. We had escaped. We were alive. We were together. And for the first time in months, we could plan a future that did not include fear, secrets, or suffering. The next day, we took a bus to Key West. As the landscape of mountains and deserts gradually transformed into palm trees and ocean, I felt that we were leaving behind more than just a city. We were leaving behind a version of ourselves that had been defined by trauma and victimization. When we finally arrived in Key West and breathed the salty Pacific air, I knew we had found the place where we could begin to heal. 6 months later, as the sun set over Key West, painting the sky golden and pink, I found myself sitting on the porch of our new house with a steaming cup of coffee in my hands, watching Sophia play on the beach with other neighborhood children. For the first time in decades, her laugh sounded genuine, free of that tension that had marked her last months in Atlanta. The house we had gotten was small but bright, with large windows that let in the sea breeze and cheerfully painted walls that Hope had chosen during her better days. Charles worked from 6 in the morning until 2 in the afternoon at his brother's business, organizing kayak tours and fishing excursions for tourists who came looking for tropical adventures. He liked the job because it allowed him to be outdoors and get home early to spend the afternoons with his family. Hope had made the most difficult decision of her life 2 weeks after arriving in Key West. After speaking with psychologists, social workers, and a priest who specialized in accompanying women in crisis, she decided to terminate the pregnancy. She could not raise a child who was the product of her own father's abuse. She could not explain to that innocent child the circumstances of his conception, and she could not risk Robert claiming rights over the baby in the future. It was a decision that emotionally shattered her for months, but which also freed her. Charles accompanied her throughout the process, without reproaches or judgments, demonstrating that true love is not measured by perfect circumstances, but by the ability to be present during the darkest moments. "What are you thinking, mother-in-law?" Charles asked me, coming up to the porch after his evening shower. He had started calling me mother-in-law instead of Mrs. Carroll. After our shared experience, as a way of confirming that I was an integral part of their new nuclear family. "I am thinking about how different life feels when you are not afraid," I replied. "Did you know that for years I could not enjoy a sunset because I was always worried about what mood Robert would be in when night came?" Charles sat in the chair next to mine, drying his hair with a towel. At 42 years old, he had found a tranquility that he did not have when we lived in Atlanta. The physical work on the beach had put him in better shape, but more importantly, he no longer had that constant tension in his shoulders that came from living in a house where something was always wrong, without knowing exactly what. "Have you heard anything about him?" he asked me. During the first 3 months after our flight, Robert had tried to contact us in every possible way. Phone calls to the numbers he knew, messages through my sister Lucy. He had even hired a private investigator to try to find us. But the lawyer Charles had hired in Key West had done an excellent job making sure all our documents were protected and that any attempted harassment was documented for future legal action. Lucy wrote to me last week. I told him, She says Robert sold the house and moved to Buffalo, New York. Apparently, he told everyone that we had gone crazy and run off with an imaginary lover. Do they believe him? Those who know him superficially probably do, but Lucy says some neighbors who knew us well started asking questions. They remembered strange things they had seen, but had never questioned. Charles nodded, taking a drink of the beer he had poured himself. And you? How do you feel knowing that he is telling that version of the story? At first, it made me angry, I admitted. 35 years of marriage reduced to his wife going crazy. But then I realized something. I no longer care what Robert says about me. I no longer care what people who never bothered to really know me think. That is a big change. It is the biggest change of my life. Hope came out of the house with a tray of fresh quesadillas and tamarind juice. She had cut her hair in a more modern style and had started wearing brighter colors after years of dressing conservatively so as not to attract Robert's attention. At 32 years old, she seemed to have recovered a youth she had lost during the months of abuse. Sophia wants to know if she can stay at Mariana's house tonight, she said while serving the food. They are going to have a sleepover to celebrate her younger sister's birthday. How do you feel about that? Charles asked her. During the first few months in Key West, Hope had developed severe anxiety every time Sophia left her sight. The months of living with the constant threat that Robert would hurt her daughter had created a state of hypervigilance that took time to overcome. But psychological therapy and the months of quiet living had started to heal those wounds. I feel good, she replied with a genuine smile. Mariana has a very normal family. Parents who work, grandparents who really act like grandparents, siblings who fight over normal sibling things. Sophia needs to see how a healthy family works. And how is she doing in therapy? Better, much better. Dr. Morales says that children are more resilient than we think, especially when they feel safe processing what happened to them. Sophia had started psychological therapy 2 weeks after our arrival in Key West. At first, she resisted talking about Robert, but gradually she had started to open up about her experiences. Dr. Morales, a psychologist specializing in child trauma, had explained to us that the fact that Sophia had adults who protected her as soon as they found out about the abuse had made a huge difference in her ability to recover. Do you know what she told me yesterday? Hope continued. She told me she no longer has nightmares about Robert, that when she dreams about him, in the dream she is older and stronger, and she can yell at him to go away. That is a very good sign, Charles said, and she asked if we could get a dog. The three of us laughed. It was so normal, so typically childish, that I felt as if we were finally living the life we should have always had. A dog? I asked. She says she wants something that is only hers, something that no one else can touch or control, something that loves her unconditionally without asking anything in return. I think that is perfect, Charles said. We can go to the animal shelter this weekend. As we ate dinner on the porch, with the sound of the waves as background music, I reflected on everything we had lost and everything we had gained during these 6 months. We had lost a house, lifelong savings, the economic security that comes from having everything planned. But we had gained something infinitely more valuable: the ability to sleep peacefully, to hug without fear, to plan the future without the shadow of threat. Mum, Hope said to me as we cleared the dishes, there is something I want to tell you. Tell me, honey. Thank you for saving me. Hope. No, let me say it. For months, I thought I was going to die in that situation. Not literally, but spiritually. I felt like every day Robert was killing me a little more inside. And you saved me. We saved each other. But you were the one who risked it first. You were the one who grabbed the knife. You were the one who decided that we could no longer keep living like this. Any mother would have done the same. That is not true, and you know it. Many women would have remained silent forever, thinking they had no options. That night, after Charles and Hope went to sleep, and Sophia had gone to her sleepover, I stayed alone on the porch, looking at the stars reflected in the dark ocean water. For the first time in decades, the silence of the night did not scare me. There were no threatening footsteps, no doors opening without permission, no manipulative whispers in the dark. I thought about all the women who at that moment were living situations similar to the one we had lived. Women who wake up every morning pretending that everything is fine, who smile for visitors while inside they are dying, who protect predators for fear of the consequences of speaking up. I thought about all the grandmothers who might be in my situation, living under the same roof as an abuser, economically dependent on him, without knowing how to protect their families, without destroying the stability they have built for decades. And I understood, Chern, that my story was not just mine. It was the story of thousands of women who needed to hear that you can escape, that you can start over. That age is not a limitation to stand up for what is right. The next day, Sophia returned from her sleepover with renewed energy and stories about movies they had watched and games they had played. During breakfast, she told me that she had told Mariana and her sisters that she used to live with a bad grandpa, but that now she lived with a family who truly loved her. And what did they say? I asked her. That I was very brave for talking about it, and that Mariana also had a bad uncle, but that her parents would never let him come to their house. How did you feel telling them? Good, like it was a story that happened to another girl, not me. That afternoon, Charles came home from work with exciting news. His brother Jason had decided to expand the business and had offered him a minority partnership in a new ecotourism company that would include whale-watching tours and excursions to nature reserves. It would be more money, he explained during dinner, and also more responsibility. But we could buy a bigger house, save for Sophia's college, have more economic stability. What do you think, Hope? I think Charles deserves all the opportunities in the world. He has been a hero to this family. And you? Have you thought about what you want to do professionally? Hope had started taking baking classes at a local technical institute. She had always been good at cooking, but now she was learning professional techniques, with the idea of eventually opening a small business selling cakes and desserts for events. I want to be economically independent, she said. I want Sophia to see that women can support themselves, that we never have to depend on a man to survive again. That is a very important lesson. But I also want her to see that there are good men, she continued, looking at Charles with genuine love. That not all men are like Robert. That true love exists, and it looks like what Charles and I have now. That night, before going to sleep, I wrote a letter that I would never send to all the women who might be living what we lived. If you are reading this, and you feel that your story resembles mine, I want you to know that you are not crazy. What you are feeling is real. What is happening in your house is not normal. And there is a way out. It is not going to be easy. It is going to require courage you did not know you had. It is going to mean losing things you thought were important. But it is going to give you something infinitely more valuable. Your dignity, your peace, and the possibility of protecting the people you truly love. It does not matter your age. It does not matter how long you have been silent. It does not matter how powerful the man who is hurting you seems. It is never too late to say, no more. Seek help. Talk to someone you trust. Make a plan. And when the time comes, act. Because women are stronger than they have taught us to believe. Now, as the sun sets on the horizon and a new night arrives without fear, I have a question for you. Have you ever lived a similar situation? Or do you know someone who has gone through something similar? Tell me in the comments. Your story could be the one that saves another family. And if this story moved you, if you think someone else needs to hear it, like and subscribe so that this message reaches those who truly need it. Because together we are stronger, and together we can break all the silences that have held us prisoner.